chair is on the screen because he's got some family illness going on. And we do have a quorum, so we'll get started now. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll make a motion to. I don't think I need a motion for that, do I? No. Yes, I do. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye. Raise your hand if you're on Zoom. Thank you. Okay, the agenda is adopted. So at this time, we have an opportunity for public comment. We have two opportunities, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end of the meeting. We ask that you identify yourself and your town. And we also ask that you try to limit yourself to two with a maximum of 3 minutes. Laura, I'm going to ask if you'll do the timing. Laura will give you all a 30-second warning that your time is closing out. We also ask that order and decorum be observed by all persons present. And our practice is that if you've spoken once and wish to speak again, we let all other folks go ahead of you so that everyone has a chance at the public comment time. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment? Yes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patty Kazbekers from Pomfret. I want to open with the fact that I have deep gratitude and respect for every good teacher my child has had in this district and appreciate Sherry's trying to handle this situation when I brought it to her. I would like to express my concern and frustrations with Alma and the adherence to the grade reporting practices and procedures in this district. In the school handbook, it reads, quote, timely and accurate student progress reporting is important for students and family and staff. Specific means of reporting are then listed. For instance, teachers post scores in Alma on a timely basis, which is said to mean, quote, as reasonably possible, but by 3 weeks after the assignment was turned in. Also, teacher posts summative assignments in Alma at least 5 days before they are due, which begs the question, if a student does not know how they did on a formative, how should they prepare for a summative? My second point and my favorite is, quote, additional communication from families will occur for any student earning an NC during the semester. Notification may be via phone, email, or conference. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, this does not happen. Our child struggled last year, unfortunately, and did receive some NCs for a variety of reasons. We pursued these matters, they became known to us, but not once did a teacher reach out to us. As another example of our struggles with the Alma system, an assignment near end of year was marked as received, but no grade ever appeared. This is the one I talked to you personally about, Sharon. I appreciate everything you did.
30 seconds.
I reached out by, well, I'm gonna go fast then. I reached out by email twice to the teacher by year end to question the grade and never received a response. And my child ended up with a 0 on a summative. As school year finished, I could not reach the teacher or principal. I contacted Sherry Susan, who said I had to follow channels. So she got me in touch with Garen, who I spoke with directly, and he said he would handle it. The grade remained a 0. Garen was no longer available to contact. Sherry apologized and said she appreciated me going through the channels and would hope things would improve going forward. When I responded that I did not think my child should take one for the district and that I wanted the 0 removed from her record or I would need to take next steps, suddenly the 0 was removed with the help of the interim principal who knew nothing really about the matter. We had a similar experience with another teacher earlier in the year. She marked an assignment in Alma as not turned in, but remembered it when reminded of the email discussion we had had surrounding it. Suddenly my child got an A on that assignment. Seemed improbable. And finally, there was one teacher who simply never returned any communication we sent regarding assignments and rarely put in a grade before the 3-week window. This is a system failure, and I find it hard to tell my child, you have to live to be graded by a system that is unclear, inconsistent, and not adhered to evenly, timely, and fairly, and has a different standard of adherence for staff versus their students. I have brought this concern up the chain as instructed. I have discussed it with counselors, a previous vice principal, and a previous principal who proved well aware of these failures without satisfaction or resolution. I just now bring it to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Yes.
Hi there. My name is Denise Peters and I'm the parent of and I live in Woodstock. And I'm a parent of a 3-year-old who just started pre-K in the school district. I am so encouraged by and grateful for this group's open-mindedness to exploring a phone-free bell-to-bell policy. Although my daughter was quite young, concerns about the detrimental effects of smartphones and social media on young people's mental health are already weighing on the hearts and minds of parents, even the youngest children in the district, as we look ahead to their futures. Being able to come together as a community around this issue to protect young people's well-being would be such a gift to parents, the young people themselves, and anyone who cares for them. Teams in districts where similar policies have been implemented have shared remarkable feedback. I'd love to highlight just a few quick examples. Students at a school in Iowa recently shared, quote, "I think my attention has kind of skyrocketed." Another student in that high school shared, "The phone ban has helped me to find new ways to cope through reading and writing." And some anecdotal feedback from participating schools in Vermont includes a librarian who shared that more children were spending time in the library and checking out books. Our principal shared that a student stated that she felt like she could breathe again. And a parent relayed that their child was enjoying school lunch because children were talking to each other rather than spending time on their phones. Other positive benefits that districts have reported experiencing are outlined on page 7 of the Phone Free Schools Administrator Toolkit, which I believe some of you have been provided. If you'd like to take a look when you have the opportunity. Thank you so much for your consideration of this important issue and for all that you do.
Thank you, Denise. Anybody else? Yes.
So I had sent, or Carrie, you have a PowerPoint that was sent.
Sherry has it.
Introduce yourself.
So my name is Kelly Kane. I have a child at Woodstock High School. She's in 10th grade. And I just wanted to go through this quick PowerPoint phone preschools at Mountain Views. And are you going to share it?
Yep.
So this is, the credit for this is given to Molly Trippin Gaines from Stowe. And it's just a quick overview of some of the benefits of going home free. So I'm just going to read from the PowerPoint. If you could go to the next slide. Who and why? Who are we? A group of Woodstock area caregivers and community members who have read this research, seen the effects of phones in schools and want to change. Why phone free? Improved academic performance, better mental health, fewer distractions, less bullying, development of social skills, and Mountain View's work with graduate attributes. What is our mission? To provide youth the freedom to excel academically and develop socially without the distractions, pressures, and harms of phones and social media during the school day. Who else is phone free? 2018, France bans phones in schools for kids under 15. 2021, China bans phones in schools for all grades. 2023, England bans phones in schools for all grades. 2023 UN Global Education Monitoring Report made a worldwide recommendation to remove phones from classrooms to improve learning and decrease exposure of cyberbullying. 2024, at least 11 states have passed laws or enacted policies that ban or restrict students' use of cell phones in schools statewide, or recommend local districts enact their own bans or restrictive policies according to an Education Week analysis. How do phones interfere with academic and social emotional learning? Is that the timer?
Yeah.
Okay. So the bottom line with phones as a teacher who teaches adults, I feel like my fantasy is that teachers would not only be able to, spend time on teaching, but also take their attention away from having to manage phones in the classroom. Also, as a parent of 2 females, the effect has been pretty dramatic as to their focus, and I would say their mental well-being. I think the research is clear on this, and I'm sure all of us know some of that research. Also, I think there's a great book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt that outlines all of the research. So I hope you guys will consider it, and thank you for letting me take the time to speak today.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there anybody else? Yes.
Hello, my name is Stone Riegler. I live in Thetford, Vermont, and I'm a ninth grader. So Thetford just recently in 2024, this summer, we enacted a phone-free school policy using the Yonder pouches. Before this policy, there was great distress in classrooms. Teachers couldn't control students. Students were on their phones constantly. It was almost a game to see if I could stay in class for the however long class is. I get my phone for that precious 3 or 4 minutes after class, just scroll on TikTok or check their feed or whatever. People during that time were on their phones during lunch, during everything. They weren't socializing as much as they used to. They just didn't talk to each other. During the summer, there was certainly a lot of grumbling from students and parents about how this would affect everything. But now that it's in action, it's really good, and I think it's been positive. It's a really good change that's helped everyone. It's helped students become more focused. Teachers have said this, and it's obvious. They're more focused, they're interacting more, they're discussing more. Students who didn't actually interact in class discussions are interacting more, they're talking to each other, they're doing things. There's more communication within teachers and students are talking to each other and being more social, and instead of using their phones to text someone, they're just telling them. That's number one. Number two. Number three is that it feels like a happier and more carefree environment without the phones. It feels like less pressure, less anxiousness, less anxiety is surrounding them. Students learn how to deal with boredom, especially understanding how to like deal with it, especially reading, drawing, writing. It's helped them cope with it. I've seen this personally. Number five is they're, instead of texting someone with to ask what they're doing, they're actively finding them to talk to them. Thank you for this opportunity. I just think that it's a really good policy and that you guys should enact it. It helps the benefit of students, teachers, and the entire district. It boosts grades and it declines social anxiety and depression. Yeah.
Would anyone else like to speak?
I'd like to speak.
Yes.
I'm actually here to talk about something other than the phone free school policy, but I'm 100% supportive, and I'm so grateful for all the work that you put in that. I came to the board meeting last May, and I came to that board meeting because I was concerned the unified arts teachers had been asked to look at their schedules and to figure out how they were going to reduce their unified arts contact time with students in K through 6. And this was concerning to me because, and to other parents, because we know that the unified arts programs provide a lot of benefits for kids, including supporting math and literacy, social emotional learning, and also just a reason to be inspired to come to class. And it was concerning also because they were being asked to reduce their contact time in order to increase the amount of time in their schedule to apply towards literacy and math. So I know that there was a report that came out with the board meeting minutes today that was in defense of the proficiency goal and addressed some of the issues that have been raised, what has happened to science and social studies in our K through 6 student schedules, what is going to happen to unified arts in our students' K through 6 schedules as the district tries to find time, more time in the schedule for reading. And I really applaud and celebrate a lot of the good progress that was reported in that report. I'm glad to see that some teachers are being encouraged to bring science back into the program. I'm glad to see that there is some improvements made across our reading goals. But I was concerned to see that there was a justification still in that document for how time and money were going to be allocated. And so when we think about all of the stakeholder process that went through to design these proficiency goals, I do not think that we're standing up here and saying that we do not believe that every child in the district should have an opportunity to be proficient in math or reading. But I think we're standing up here and asking, is the path to implementation one that we're willing to embark on as a district? And from my perspective, this really is an opportunity to go back to your stakeholders and ask, are we willing to sacrifice unified arts time in our schedule in order to achieve the literacy goal? And how can we look at STEM, art, and music as part of the path to achieving that literacy goal? So I challenge this board, as you are faced with budget cuts and also are thinking about time and schedule and program numbers, to remember that arts, music, and STEM are equity. There is lots of data that demonstrates how disadvantaged students have greater retention rates in school, less absenteeism when they're doing those to the arts, and that they have higher outcomes, so better SAT scores, they're more likely to complete college.
Elizabeth, we've exceeded the time limit.
Thank you. So I'm really just asking that this is another time for the board and the districts to re-engage with your stakeholders on some of these choices that are really going to affect my belief student outcomes.
Thank you.
What's your last name? Reeves from Woodstock.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, then we'll move into the next part of the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody, for your thoughts and comments and suggestions. First is the superintendent's report.
Thanks, Gary. Welcome, Dr. Shen. Good to see you.
Hi, great to see you.
So there's a summary of some of the activities and things that we've been working over in August. Just want to highlight a few and then talk about something that most recently happened that I think should be part of our conversation tonight. So first, we had a great opening, lots of excitement and energy. Carrie was there when faculty and staff first returned, gave us a really positive orientation as we began our school year. In mid-August, I was able to participate in training on our high and low ropes course with some of our teachers, administrators, and paraeducators. It was a great time. I did struggle, as others could witness, but it was really a great opportunity. And I know our Prosper Valley students have really accessed that significantly. And I'm optimistic that other schools and grades will also use our high and low ropes course. I think it's really important to note that we had onboarding for our new faculty and staff. For faculty, we had 15 new faculty teachers and we met at Prosper Valley. It's an opportunity to talk about our primary documents, our portrait of a graduate, strategic plan, and the work of the district. And then finally, we had our opening day meeting where we introduced all our new faculty and staff, and we also had a really important presentation from the director of the Human Rights Commission, looking at the harassment, hazing, and bullying policy, HHB, as well as microaggressions and bystander intervention. It was a 2-hour presentation, very dynamic. Our faculty was very involved. That will be followed up with a survey to all faculty and staff around what are other topics that the Human Rights Commission can bring to us, Big Heart and the director, over the next 3 years. So that was a really good exchange. The piece that it wasn't and didn't make our report that I think is really important, especially in lieu of what happened in Georgia last week. So one of the roles of the superintendent is to maintain and update our emergency operations plan. That's a document that's well over 200 pages and refers to every element of an emergency that we as administrators need to be aware of: contact information, phone numbers. One piece that came out of that review, and it took me 2 days to get through it, and just updating names and numbers, was our ability for faculty and staff to communicate to each other and for us to communicate to families in the event of an emergency. And reviewing the incident of last week, and tragic, and we continue to say the tragedy, the piece that I took away from that was interesting for me was the ability of faculty and staff to communicate when a lockdown was needed immediately. And it's called the panic button. They had lanyards, all the teachers, and so they were able to, as a faculty or staff member, immediately call in a lockdown and communicate to law enforcement, really allow people to get to the location as quickly as possible. Spoke with Raf on the end of the day Friday, and Jim, and so we're looking at opportunities where that can happen. We have a little bit more ESSER money that we need to spend by the end of the month, hoping that could be a way, but really empowering our faculty and staff to communicate quickly and to get that information to law enforcement as quickly as possible. So I just wanted the board to be aware that we do update our emergency operations plan yearly. That document is used for each emergency plan for each campus, and our principals are in charge of that. But communication is an issue that we have buildings that don't have a cell phone service. We have buildings that have cinder block walls that make it really hard for our systems to work. So it's something that Jim and Rath and I are really attending to, and hopefully in the next few weeks can report on, but it's part of what we have working. So
Has a question or a comment?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Sherry. I'm getting a little echo. Brilliant, thank you. I had also taken that piece of information and I was going to bring it to the discussion tonight. So I really appreciate that you're already on the ball, aware of these systems. I can tell you that emergency departments use them specifically for that reason, not only to alert other staff, but also to alert law enforcement, being able to identify exactly where, and also that cross-staff communication is really important. I know like down in the cafeteria, they don't always hear the PA system, and how important that is not only for staff to know, but then they can lock down within their rooms. So they're protecting students, colleagues, and when law enforcement arrives on scene, they have almost a near pinpoint location as to where they need to respond to. And so I can't support this idea enough, and let me know how I can help this idea move forward, because I think this is critical given our current campus situation, not only in that we don't have a single entry point, but also the inability to communicate across the campus. So yes, I highly tout this technology, and I've used it myself, and it's brilliant.
thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Any other board members have a comment? All right, then we'll move into the RAF's report from the Director of Technology and Innovation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rafael Adnak. I'm the Director of Technology and Innovation of the district here. Two pieces that I would share with you for my update. So you'll notice that there is no enrollment report in this board book. And just a reminder that the reason for that is that the first 10 days of the school year, we spend cleaning up our enrollment records for state reporting. And so there's a 10-day window at the start of the year where that happens. And then after that, we will go through. And so in the next board meeting, you'll see the enrollment report today. Initial quick look at our numbers. It looks like our enrollment is holding steady, perhaps increasing a little bit, but we'll know a little bit more as we go through and clean this records. It looks like we're holding steady. The other piece is that the Agency of Education is changing the way that they are collecting our state reporting this year. And so that's going to add some additional challenges to us in the next 2 months to meet those requirements. So we're working hard to do that, but it is definitely an added stressor to our work this fall, and we're going to have to solve a lot of problems along the way. So anytime the state changes the system, there are new issues that emerge, and we just kind of have to figure it out as it goes along.
Thank you, Raph. Any questions for Raph? Adam?
Just with regards to enrollment, and I guess this goes back to our conversations about bringing more students into the middle school and high school. What are our recruitment efforts look like in terms of the Ludlow area? Because over the last 3 weeks, I've had a couple different conversations with parents of kids that are about to or already entering into the middle school, and they're choicing into Woodstock. So I just I see that as an opportunity to make sure that we're capturing more students.
I can tell you, Adam, that we now have a bus that picks up in downtown center Ludlow, right at the shopping center.
Awesome.
Last year we were at Echo Lakes. We moved that stop into town. I believe we have at least 5 or 6 students riding it, but I don't know the exact count yet. But we're making an effort to meet them at least part way. I can tell you in Weathersfield, we were contacted by a student last year who asked for a stop. And I said, sure, give me 8 students who will get on that stop with you. He got us 14 students, so we added 2 stops for him. So I do the same thing for Ludlow if they took the initiative.
Right, and I think too, so counseling department does do outreach to the different towns. As well, I'll tell you, Shayna Kalmitsky, who is our Director of Student Support Services, independently has posted on their listserv, has conversations with everyone and anyone. So we're really trying to do some marketing in that area. Absolutely.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Ralph. Now we'll hear from our Director of Student Support Services, Shayna Kalmitsky.
Hi, I'm Shayna Kalnitsky. I live in the district that includes Ludlow, and I attend board meetings in my own district and talk about the ability to go to Woodstock Middle School and High School. So it's a frequent conversation at their board meetings. I don't know that they always want me to say that, but I put it fun for us. The beginning of the school year and even the summer has been busy. We welcomed so many new staff members to our department. Some highlights of those positions include special educators, an intensive English instructor in the middle school and high school for our students who are multi-language learners. We also have a multi-language learning coordinator who joined us, a new SLP, that's a speech and language pathologist, and it's an in-person provider. We are so fortunate to find her. New staff has been working with Amanda Ray, supporting across all 6 buildings. We do share staff as small schools, and making sure that amongst those 6 buildings, scheduling classes, making sure services are provided, and also making sure that our new staff has access to the same high quality learning that our other educators have in the areas of literacy and mathematics, in addition to some of the special education resources and tools that are available. And speaking of that professional development, this year we're going to be extending the learning that our educators, classroom educators have had to our para-educators. So Julie Brown, who's our literacy coordinator, and Patty Kelly, who's our math coordinator, will be working with Lori Beeland and in the areas of literacy, mathematics, and social emotional learning, so that the work that the classroom teachers are doing, the para-educators can support as well. And they'll be learning proven strategies to build reading fluency and real life math problems, and also building relationships and responding appropriately to students who may be dysregulated or challenging and having some big feelings in class. And also we are working in our department on transitioning over to a new information system that does sync with the AOE. We are switching to EdDoc Vermont. We're spending the entire year migrating from our current IEP, that's Individual Education Program. It's the document that outlines the specialized instruction and services for students who are eligible for special education. And the reason for that is because our old system did not sync with the AOE. Whenever they made a change or had a new form, we had to have it totally reprogrammed. So the new system is more efficient. It's a much better value because we can centralize all of that information to be accessed by all of our administrators and educators across the district. And we will be working on that for the entire school year to make sure that it's as smooth as can be.
Thank you, Shayna. Any questions for Shayna? Okay, thank you. Now we'll hear from the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, Jen Settle.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to extend a thank you to the community members. That's thank you. I much appreciate you having your voice present. I wanted to first speak to this summer. This summer was a busy summer for our teachers. We had 200 days at least worth of work happening for our teachers. A lot of the work that needs to happen to run our schools well needs to happen during the summer. We don't have time during the school year. So thanks to a little bit of local funds, but mostly grant funds, title funds, and ESSER, we had a lot of work happening. What that meant was our payroll department was very stressed with lots of pay sheets coming in. So I did want to give a public thank you to Jennifer Conrad for all the work she did to process all those payments. We are a team in terms of making everything happen in this district, and she definitely made sure everyone got paid, and I wanted to say thank you. It was an extra task for her this summer. Additionally, we had the opportunity to bring on some new teachers, and with some more grant funds, we do have retired teacher Tim Brennan back among us a little bit. We have a little stipend for him where he is piloting a new teacher mentorship program at the high school and middle school that includes one-on-one mentoring for those teachers and also the mentors, to try and have a really nice wraparound design that maybe we can use in other schools in the future. As I said, it's just a pilot and we're trying it out, but it's great to have an experienced teacher back with us doing that work for all of us. We do have incredible professional development happening this year, from our Late Start Wednesdays to our job embedded professional development. That also includes a lot of credit bearing and workshops, credit bearing tuition courses that teachers are taking and workshops. To date, we've had 45 credit bearing tuition reimbursement requests from our teachers. That goes to show how hungry our teachers are for excellent professional learning, not only with what's happening in our district, but they go out elsewhere and bring that learning back to us. So again, a thank you to all of you for supporting the tuition reimbursement line for our teachers. As you heard from Elizabeth Reeves, we do have a new resource that's embedded in the board packet about our math and literacy initiatives and how they came to be, what our proficiency goals are, some of the steps we've taken, how we are proceeding in those goals. Maybe might help you answer some of the questions you're encountering in the community about this topic. I highly recommend you read it. If you just want a summary, reach out to me. I'll meet with you and we can talk about it as well. Hopefully that is a helpful go-to resource for you as you encounter community members or teachers, or even just have your own curiosities about those initiatives. We do have a new math pilot happening this year at the elementary level. We are piloting a new math program. Teachers who are participating in the pilot will be reaching out to families to share a little bit more information about this pilot. The old program we were using in our elementary classrooms for mathematics was being phased out and was no longer relevant or being published. So it was time for us to move on. So we had a group of teachers come together last year to select a couple programs for pilot, and we are in the midst of that right now. And you'll also be hearing about that through your newsletters at the elementary level. And then finally, we do have the opening of our fall assessment window. So students will be assessed and use the subjects that we do our assessments in, so that we can get a baseline reading so that we can continue to improve academics for our students.
Thank you very much, Jen. Any questions, comments for Jen? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll move into our time scheduled appointments, starting with an introduction to Parent Square from Brady Bishop.
Okay, this is currently one of my favorite topics, but I will try to keep it brief. See if I can go over it. So Parent Square came about because we were looking at ways to improve our communication. Parent Square is currently being used district-wide. It's a platform of home to school, school to home communication. One of the problems that I see in my current position and in the 7 years I was at the Reading Elementary School is trying to get communication to all stakeholders. And it's very labor intensive. And I know our current admin assistants face the same thing. You know, you have email, you have listservs, you have Front Porch Forum, you have our website, you have their website. And still we hear people say, we didn't know about that. And so we were looking for a way to fix that, especially in light of this past January, February, March, when we were looking at a bond, and there were a lot of people who did not have the information that they were looking for and no easy way to get it. So this is what it used to look like, trying to get information out to people. I actually found out, surprisingly, that there are some teachers who text their parents with their personal cell phones, giving them their contact information 24/7, which I found a little, I'm very much a work-life balance person. And so I was a little concerned finding that the only way that they could communicate with parents was on their personal time with their personal phone. So what Parent Square does is it takes all of those, it takes all of the staff contact and all of the parent contacts and routes it through Parent Square. Parent Square is very safe and secure. So here's what Parent Square can do. We've actually replaced our school messenger, which was an alert system, with this program, and we've also replaced SMORE with this system. So we're taking systems that can only serve one purpose and trying to find a system that can serve multiple purposes. So basically, teachers and staff share school-related news to Parent Square. Parents and guardians receive the information in a manner that they want. So if they want to receive it via a text, they can. If they want to receive it in their email, they can. So it's all about receiving information in the manner that they want. And it's also in their preferred language as we diversify and we get families here whose English is not their native language. This has an automatic translation feature, and it's a two-way translation. So the teachers can communicate to a parent in their language. It automatically translates into the parent's preferred language. And when they respond, it automatically translates back into the teacher's preferred language. And one thing is, this is all in one place. You don't have to go multiple places to get the information. So here's some things that it can do. Like I said, so there is a web portal that you can go. It also has an app, which is currently my favorite method. You can, like I said, receive text messages. And here is what I mean by information is all in one place. There's a calendar feature. And if you look, the upcoming events are on the right-hand side. Those are all events district-wide and individualized by school. So schools add their events, their parents see their school events, but they also see things I put in as a district-wide, for example, our board meetings. So people always don't know when the board meetings are, don't have the Zoom link, or don't have the agenda, and it's all in one place. Another capability of Parent Square, which we have not activated yet, is community groups. This is something that I was very interested in. So yes, we want to communicate to our staff and to our families, but extending our efforts out into the community is something that I was really interested in. Let me drag this. See the top of my screen. So here is currently what our district dashboard looks like. This shows me that currently all of our families are contactable in one way or another. So I also get a report every day if a parent has changed one of their contact methods, like their phone number changed or their email changed. So I can go immediately into Alma and make the update there. And one thing that I like for, from a staff point of view, is the metrics that we can receive on how we are reaching people, what their preferred method is, how they're receiving the information, things that, like, to date, since I believe the end of June, there's been 356 direct messages. That's messages from parents to their kids' teacher, or vice versa. But this also shows how people are interacting, and by school, like performance-wise, who's sending out the main posts. So go Melissa Zorhide for being the leader so far of posts. And we're just sort of skimming the surface right now. We're getting the basics down, because the first thing we want to do is parents to be able to reach their teachers. And other way around, teachers to be able to reach the parents. So that's what we're focusing on right now.
Sounds like a really powerful program.
I believe it can be. I believe it can be.
It sounds great. My company uses something like it, my nonprofit uses something like it, Slack. Have the teachers been trained? Because I have to tell you, my son's teacher is telling me everything's gonna be on Alma, all assignments, all communications, Alma. So do the teachers know that this is?
So they do. They do. I went around to every school at the in-service days before school started and introduced it to all of the teachers. The goal is to use Parent Square. There are enough challenges at the beginning of a school year, just getting the new school year off the ground, and to throw learning a new system at teachers is more difficult for some than others. Some people jumped in with both feet and embraced it fully, and some people need to just dip their toe in and learn it. But eventually the goal is parent square. Because we want to eliminate the amount of places people have to go to get information.
So like with Alma become, like right now, you go and find your kid's assignments if the teacher puts them on Alma. Would you like take that function off of Alma just to push it into? I'm just trying to figure out how the two will work. Like, will Alma always exist? Parent Square?
Yes, Alma is our student information system, so we will always have Alma. Parent Square is a communication platform. So I'm assuming, where's Raph? I'm assuming we will still keep homework and assignments and stuff on Alma.
Okay. Got it.
Bob?
Yeah, how much does it cost?
Cheaper than the other two combined. I know it went down. We had a little bit of a fee this year for implementation, but year by year, it's cheaper than the two that we replaced with it.
Sounds like a good system so far.
They're
Thank
just
you.
trained on how to cancel school.
Any other comments from the board?
Yeah.
Ryan?
What's the confidentiality that like a parent and teacher conversation? Are you able to access their conversation to the app? It's all separated
Yes,
one way or another, the encryption?
correct.
Thank you.
So do parents have to do something to sign up for this, or like when I'm getting emails, is it coming through that already?
So whether you have a Parent Square account or not, if your email address is in Alma, it is being populated into Parent Square, and that's how you'll receive the information. So you'll still get it'll still look like an email, but if you want to view the website, or if you want to view the app, then you would have to actually activate your account.
And have or will parents like get notified that they need to do that?
I have sent out a notification email, and I know the principals individually have also sent out notification emails. Would you like me to see if you opened it?
On screen?
So, Alma has that, the consequences, if you don't do your forms, your kid can't go on a field trip. Or is there something we've come up with to get parents to use Parent Square?
There is a forms and permission feature. Like I said, we want to do the basics of communication first, but there are a lot of like event features, signups. You can schedule parent-teacher conferences through it, and you can do forms as well, but.
What I'm saying is, have we come up with a way to encourage parents to open their accounts? Like saying, like with Alma, we say you can't take your first field trip until you do your Alma forms. Have we come up with an incentive or a consequence to get parents to actually open up Parent Square accounts?
Because they're still receiving the information regardless of whether they activate their accounts or not. I don't want to, despite what my boss thinks, I'm not a pushy person. So I don't want to push people to receive information in a manner that they don't want to. If they want the app, then they would activate their accounts. But if they don't want the app and email suits them, then they'll still get the information.
Elliot?
So can this act for an emergency as well to fulfill the role that we were talking about earlier? That if there's
Absolutely.
something like a lockdown or something that is imminent.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So you should train the superintendent.
it's very user friendly, so it'll be.
So we have all these forms of communication already in tag and in place. However, parents have been talking to teachers and vice versa. What is this doing that we have to spend money on to buy this program or whatever? I mean, there's already communication. My kids have been in here
So-
7 years. I talk with every teacher instantly. I mean, they are very responsive, especially at Prosper, not just to the others, just a compliment to Prosper Valley. Very responsive, very easy to get in touch with. I felt up to date the last 6 or 7 years with all three of my kids, so I'm just confused on why it's not good enough, how we've been doing it. Like, are there people struggling to know how to communicate with the teachers and each other?
If a parent is reaching out directly to a teacher and they're responding and that's working for them, then by all means. Parent Square is, so when you send a message out in Alma, it just goes out. It goes out into the ether. You have no idea if it was received, if it went to a spam folder, if they looked at it. With this, we do. And it puts all of the information in one spot. If you didn't have to go and look up the teacher's email address, or if you didn't have to go look up the school phone number, and it's all in one place, and you just flip open your app and hit that little message button that you want to send a message, it's that simple. And it hand delivers information to people in the manner that they wish to receive the information.
And some more was getting more and more expensive. So the newsletters that you were receiving from Aaron and from other principals. So some more, which was our way we published our newsletters, the costs are really going through the roof. So that's when
Cost comparison between that and the school program.
it's for two different programs, Rena said, that we were using. This is less than those two combined.
Yeah.
We replaced our emergency notification system, which was School Messenger, and we replaced our SMORE account, which they more than doubled on us, I believe.
I guess I'm just confused on why we even have to pay for something like this if we can already text and communicate. I'm glad it's cheaper than what other options are that you're getting rid of, but it's still an unnecessary expense when our budget is so skewed and messed up right now, because we already have communication in place. It sounds nice, I mean, I get the concept, I just don't understand the urgency or the necessity for this, I guess.
Well, it's our
And
emergency notification system.
we have,
Well, it wasn't working
It wasn't
great.
working.
So,
that's good to know.
well, I mean, it was working at 5 o'clock in the morning when I'm telling you a snow day. But there were other times where I needed to be at a certain place and location because there are like 5 different passcodes. It takes 10 different steps. It's not an efficient system. It's a system we were using. So this will make it a lot easier for me to get notifications out. For example, when we had to close the school that Wednesday morning at the high school, I had to run over here because I couldn't do it on my cell phone. I had to use so there's some real, we were using it. It's the system we had. This is a much more efficient system. That's just school method.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, Heather.
Thank you. I'd like to share that Randolph recently adopted this platform. And the most important thing I'd like to share is it replaces text. Like you said, we already have text. But teachers and paras should not be texting parents from their cell phones. And so today we had a bomb threat, and I was able to send out through Parent Square a text to all families without using my own cell phone. It goes through Parent Square. It's really keeps our educators safe. And we also replaced SMORE and replaced Messenger. And it is a cost savings, and it gives us the added capability of text, which we did not have with those previous platforms. So I just want to throw my voice behind Raina and say this is a great adoption.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll move now into a discussion of AI by Raf.
Did you want me to put, I saw you're on.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
The folks in the back want chairs, but you can take the chairs from the table.
Brandon, can you make me a host?
Sure.
You're such a description.
So last spring, you may remember I came before the board and we talked a little bit about the status of some AI work that we were doing here in the district, and just wanted to give you an update as to where we are and some pieces that have come out since then. So last year, I was approached by Warren Sullivan Justice at the start of the year. And she said, "What are you doing about AI? How are we going to be handling AI this year?" And I said, "It's a really good question." I knew that Garen and Cody had revised one sentence of the academic integrity policy to talk about generative AI. And we said, well, let's kind of see how that goes. And we started to go in the year, and it became pretty apparent that that wasn't enough, that there was a lot of nuance, there was a lot of complexity that was coming out with generative AI, and that really made things difficult. Then later in the year, Andy Smith came to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to experiment with my computer science students and using generative AI for coding. Can I do it?" And I said, "No, I can't, because of the privacy concerns and because of the terms of service." And so this group said, we'd really like to talk about some of these things. We want to get together. We want to do more work around this. So last year, we had this AI work group that formed, and we started, and originally we were going to be looking at creating guidelines for students. But what was really interesting and what I learned was that we came up with just as many guidelines, if not more, for educators than we did for students. So there's a lot of interesting complexity around this. One of the big pieces that came out was that if we wanted to have students use any AI in our schools, the terms of service of these agreements make it such that we have to get parental permission. They all say students between the age of 13 and 18 need parental permission. And so after doing a little bit of research at other schools, realized that really the only way to do that was to ask permission. So we built in the annual forms an AI permission form where parents can say yes or no, whether they would want their child to have access to some generative AI tools through their school issued account. And parents are going through and are answering that as they complete the forms this year. So this was all work that we did last year when we got to the summer. And then Aaron came on and asked a really good question and said, well, what are experts like? Has anyone outside our organization really looked at this? I said, it's a great question. We should do that. And so who can we get to help us understand and can give us some feedback on where we are and make sure that we're kind of heading in the right direction. So we're fortunate enough over the summer to find a number of different experts to work with us. So Justin Reich is an MIT professor and the director of the Teaching Systems Lab at MIT. He's also sort of a friend of the district. He has a house in Barnard and sent his kids to Barnard Academy during COVID and had a wonderful experience. So I reached out to him. He put me in contact with some other people in his group, Jesse Dukes and Natasha Estevez. And Jesse was my main contact, and they've been talking to educators all over the country for their podcasts and trying to understand all the different complexities around AI. And so Jesse, Justin, and Natasha gave us feedback on our guidelines, lots and lots of feedback. It was very helpful. A lot of it was sort of affirming in the direction that we were going in, and they also challenged us on a number of things as well. So it was really good to get that outside perspective. After doing that, we realized that we needed to find someone who could help us bring towards some professional development for our educators. And so for this, we reached out to Greg Kulowick. Greg is a consultant, a former teacher and tech director who's been training schools all over the country around how AI is working. So we shared our guidelines with Greg, and then we had Greg did a 2-hour professional development session with the teachers at the middle school, high school at the start of this year to just begin to lay the foundation for understanding what generative AI is and how it works. So this year, we're really looking at this initial implementation where we're starting to dabble with it. One of the phrases that Greg used for us was that we need to learn really quickly and move slowly as we do this work. So we're trying to learn as much as we can and start taking on some new pieces. We're doing additional professional development, and we're also doing some design workshops with teachers who are really focusing in on specific aspects of generative AI, questions that they have, problems that they have, and having some deeper conversations about how we can help resolve these things. One of the pieces that Greg shared with us, and this is a paper, and this is just a way of thinking about this that is really different. And I want to share it with you because I think it really begins to highlight how this is different from many things that we've seen in the past. And this is this concept of technologies that have arrived versus technologies that are adopted. And so this was a paper that these folks at MIT wrote, but there's this really specific piece, which I think really gets to, which is generative AI is an arrival technology. So unlike laptop computers, its presence in schools is not the result of a policy adoption. Like smartphones, students are using generative AI in school assignments regardless of whether schools encourage or forbid it. And this is what we saw last year. We saw students using the tools outside of school and teachers getting into these power struggles with students around, did you use generative AI for this or not? And what that is. Arrival technologies are really tricky and they can really harm schools if they're not effectively managed. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to lay this foundation and begin to acknowledge that it is an arrival technology, but then how do we create an environment for learning for our students instead of getting into these power struggles? One piece that Greg Kulik really emphasized is trying to understand how these models are working. And so he gave us a great simple example, which I'll share with you here. And it's that these models are predictive. It seems like if you've used any of these tools before, it seems like there's intelligence. It seems like there's this capability to do all this, but it's really just sophisticated prediction. And the simplest example is, you know, if you say peanut butter and
Banana.
banana was one of the options. The most common answer is jelly, and that's what the system is doing. It is going through and predicting what the next word is. And so understanding how they work, understanding the shortcomings, understanding what they can do and what they can't do is something that we want our educators to be working on. We want our students to be working on because these are technologies we're going to have to understand in order to be able to function. So a few major takeaways. We can't ignore the arrival of generative AI, even if we wanted to ban it outright. It's if we're having students do work outside of school, it's highly likely that they would use other tools and other ways to do that. We need to understand how it works as best as we can, and so we can understand where it's applicable and where it's not. We want to focus on assignments and tasks, not on AI detection. This was one of the more controversial part of our guidelines, which is saying that teachers should not be using AI detection tools because they are inaccurate, they're not consistent, they're not replicable. And we really want to have an environment where students are being asked to do tasks that AI can't complete. And so that if a teacher is asking a student to do something, and they use generative AI for it, it's really obvious. And so we want to be focusing on these tasks. And if we do that, there are opportunities for both students and teachers around personalizing education, making education more accessible to students. So in the past, we've talked about universal design for learning, making different ways of bringing material forward to students. AI can help with a lot of that. We just have to be very thoughtful about how we're doing it and proceed forward. And try different pieces and learn from as we go. So we have some additional PD sessions, 2 more PD sessions scheduled with Greg Kulik later this year. And we'll revisit this at the end of the year and see where our guidelines are and what needs to be changed.
Thank you, Raph. Any questions for Raph? Ben?
Yeah, Raph, that was really excellent. To pull that group of experts together like that, I mean, that was a clinic on how we should tackle issues like this. And thank you so much for your work and your presentation. On the opportunities section, I apologize. Both my audio and my ears are not working great right now. What I don't know if I heard was the opportunity to kind of equip students with the ability to effectively use AI in an ethical and responsible way. Is that something that we're encouraging our teachers to work into the curriculum? And the reason I ask the question is, you know, we're going to be sending these kids out into a world where they'll be expected to use it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there are some of our educators who are more, wanting to adopt this more quickly are really equipped to do that. So Andy Smith, I think, is having these conversations with his computer science students and showing them how, it can help in their coding, but how if they don't have the basic knowledge, then they're not going to be able to use the tools effectively. So I think we want to get there. We have to lay a lot of foundations to begin with, just so that we can even have those conversations. But yeah, absolutely, that's where we want to get to. We want to be able to equip our students to have these conversations and to understand how the tools are working.
And I think, in conversations, because I sat in on that session, as well as with RAP, there are opportunities to take away some of the responsibilities of teachers that are incredibly repetitive, that will allow teachers to have more involvement, hands-on with students. I can say as a special educator, I would write a report. It would take me 8 hours. After you've been a diagnostician for years, it's just like an automatic pilot. That is not a good use of time. This is data, this is information. I can pull in my prompts, I can write, and then I can go back and put my voice into it. So that alone, for a special educator to have a system like that, who can do a first draft, that you can upload those parameters. I think there's lots of opportunities that will increase the forward-facing contact between teacher and student, and some of those more repetitive tasks can be used. AI as a first draft and then bringing it. So I think there's some real opportunities so English teachers are not taking home those bags of 80 essays on Catcher in the Rye that they're going to have to read that weekend and edit for. So we're going to look at it, and we're going to work with our teachers around how that makes sense. And then hopefully having more time to do the real work in front of students. So we're interesting.
Really wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Raph, I was just gonna ask, those future PD sessions, kind of what the thoughts are, if it would make sense to, allow kind of, parents, in the district to kind of observe. I think just the more opportunity we have for folks to better understand what this looks like and feels like, the better chance we have of people, buying into it.
Yeah, we'd have to talk to our presenter about that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the more people that we can have in the conversation, the better. It's been a really good dynamic conversation, and where we are landing is that there are teachers who are saying they don't want to use AI right now, and that is 100% fine. What they need to do is they need to be aware that if they're giving assignments to students, and those assignments are conducted outside the class, that students may be using AI, whether they're instructed to or not. And so that's really where we're starting. But yeah, I think the more people we can get involved in the conversation, we're kind of better.
Or minimally, if it feels like too much, to open it up to the broader, parent community, for board members to have the opportunity to audit it.
Those parent responses on the Alma forms, were they generally positive, mixed? Like, do you have a sense of what?
Yeah, I checked on Friday and we'd only gotten 30% back, but they were very, very positive.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, go ahead, Brian.
On the AI, for instance, when you just put that on the screen, you ask, peanut butter, the AI would predict jelly. I had banana because it's a pretty common thing. Yeah. And because I thought to myself, 20 people just publicly laughed at me for my own thought. And it's because I didn't observe AI. I don't think that's cool. That's all. So when kids are in class and they use their own mind to answer a question, are they going to get publicly shamed and laughed at? If it doesn't line up with AI, because we're being programmed to follow line here?
No, I think you raise a really good point. And one of the pieces that was raised during our professional development is that the use of generative AI in writing tends to make it more similar. And I think that's something that we really have to be aware of, and that may not be something at all that we want. We don't want every student
uniqueness, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
that's the opposite.
So
they all laugh at me for being unique.
So I think that absolutely, like, understanding where those different pieces are, is really important. And where we need to focus on uniqueness it is not a place where AI is involved. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Usually we don't have parents or audience speak during this time, but you can certainly ask during the public comment. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Raph, that was fascinating. Really. All right, and now we have a presentation from Aaron about cell phones in school.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good evening, board. Thanks for having me tonight. Certainly keep it brief. Certainly appreciate the community members and parents, students that have joined us this evening and have also already spoken to quite a bit of this. So I'm going to do a really quick abbreviated version. I've shared a PowerPoint presentation with you that's reasonably comprehensive, and then I collapsed it down for a few minutes here, and I'm going to collapse it down even further, just to a couple of minutes of your time. But I've also shared with you through Superintendent Sousa some resources, a couple and some data. But I just want an opportunity to keep the board abreast of our journey towards a cell phone free teaching and learning environment, where our goal is to maximize all the resources that this community is so privileged to have access to for these students. So I just really want an opportunity to, again, bring you in the loop on a couple things. I have two guests with me this evening, which I'll introduce to you and provide an opportunity for some question and answer if you like. Dr. Ray Chin is here. He is a clinical child psychologist in our area, a clinical psychologist in our area, and has been a resource to many of the schools in our area as they've embarked on this journey. So we have Dr. Chin here available to us. He can help speak to any of the social, emotional, behavioral learning implications of such a move. And also online, we have Dr. Mitch Prinstein. He is from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And I'm honored to announce that we have partnered with the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, specifically the Winston National Center on Technology Use, Brain and Psychological Development. Dr. Prinstein is also part of Project SMILE, an acronym that stands for Smartphone Interactions and Learning Experience. And he is also the principal researcher, investigator in the Department of Psychology and Neurology at UNC. It's interesting, this summer I had an opportunity to connect with a couple of our colleagues up as our administrative retreat. And one of the ideas that was thrown on this table was, what if we enjoyed and participated in a study that would push on the edge of knowledge in this space and also help contribute to the larger body of knowledge, which is becoming much more broad and expansive every day in this field. Being a researcher and really enjoying those opportunities and projects, it seemed like a great opportunity to slow down, to learn a lot about this movement and this work, and involve the Woodstock and the Union communities in something a little bit larger than ourselves. So it seemed like a great opportunity to achieve all of those things at once. Again, I have lots of statistics and data to share. I'm happy to do that through Superintendent Sousa. Now, not necessarily the time at this point. In the PowerPoint, there's lots of links and resources. It's not a comprehensive list. I have much more. I've been thinking about this for years. I had the pleasure of meeting a mother in our community in Vermont that's been very helpful in this effort and has provided lots of resources and connections as well. So I just wanted to essentially let you know that we do have some community forums scheduled. The first one is September 19th, 6:30 over at the high school, specific room to be determined. We'll follow up again with another evening opportunity for families and students in the community to join on October 3rd, 6:30, and then try to get in a morning session the following morning for those that work and may be more challenging. But the 8 o'clock on Friday, October 4th. So those are venues in which we'll have opportunities to share a little bit more about what we're doing here and why we're doing it, but also hear from the community, any questions, concerns. Be able to address all of those in those forums. Thinking about offering a remote option for those that may not be able to join any of those in person. So we'll work to make that happen. And then most certainly and on the edge of my mind is the student experience and student voice in this process. So once we get some things going, we've been talking about having high school advisories, a location for conversation, dialogue, questions and concerns, and some visioning. And in the middle school, through our wellness classes. So those are two ways in which we can catch the vast majority, if not all, of our student population. One, so we can hear from students, hear what their questions are, hear what their concerns are, hear what their experiences are, and certainly consider all of those. And also, I'm very interested in being a part of kind of a student steering committee or a larger student body committee where students can have access to myself and the assistant principal directly so that we can speak freely about these topics and really, again, an opportunity to get as many voices to the table as possible. But ultimately, as you heard from the folks that have presented already, and maybe in the news and in the media, this is really important. This is the type of work that educators like myself believe in. I really believe that this is an opportunity to really genuinely maximize a lot of opportunities, a lot of resources, and a lot of potential in our schools and our learning environment. And it's been articulated by some as an opportunity, a tool, an implementation strategy that really can level the playing field to some extent for an entire population in a very particular way, in this specific way. So I don't want to, keep you too much. I did bring some examples of some resources and documents. I think one of the things that's really interesting is just a list of a bunch of schools in New England and around and beyond that have already embarked on this journey. These specific schools are those that are using the Yonder Pouch approach. But Thetford Academy is also represented here today, as well as Lamoille, South Supervisory Union. The entire SU has made this commitment for all the same reasons I've described and are beginning to see as our Thetford student. Thank you for joining us. Has spoken so eloquently too. These schools that are doing this work and these communities that are supporting this work are seeing benefits. They're seeing the benefits that we've all been speaking to, the social, emotional, behavior, and academic benefits. And I believe that our students deserve that opportunity as well. Again, I'm happy to share some resources and pass them around. I've made copies of many. But here are examples of the Phone Free Schools Administrator Toolkit, which is a resource that I and many of the principals in the area that have embarked on this journey have been using. So I encourage you to take one. If there's not enough, I can make more. They're also digitally linked in the presentation. I'd like to provide you with a copy of just an outline of Project Smile and the study, which I forgot to mention, we intend to be longitudinal. So this is an opportunity for students, families, and teachers in our community to anonymously contribute data on an ongoing basis regarding their experience in this regard over some time. And this has the ability to really help us as a school district, a community, a state, a region, a nation, and be part of the global community as we all have this common goal. So a bit of an overview of the actual study, and then a nice example of a parental permission consent form from the University of North Carolina are also available for you. Again, list of local schools, also LinkedIn. I find this to be a really nice resource, cell phones and school safety. I think one of the myths and facts that we'll talk about in these community forums is around school safety, also spoken addressed this evening. But there's some really concrete examples and rationale for the ways in which we might navigate a school and learning environment when cell phones are not present. And then also linked in the presentation is a draft letter to the families, students, and communities that outlines this journey and the implementation steps. So do we have a specific implementation date for this intervention? No, we don't yet, and that's okay with me. It was really important to me that we have this conversation as a community and board, have these other conversations, forums with the community and with students. But all the while behind the scenes, administration is doing their homework, doing the research, planning out implementation strategies, and is ready to go. So again, Dr. Mitch Prinstein here from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Thank you for your patience this evening. Is here to maybe answer any questions that you might have about the study that we hope to get the vast majority, if not all, of our community involved in. It's just a great opportunity. You can speak to the de-identification of data or any things that might be on your mind. And Dr. Chin is also here again, help speak to the social, emotional learning, behavioral, academic implications of such an intervention. So again, it's a lot. Had a presentation, compressing it down to just chatting at you. And I've got a plethora of resources and much more in my office. So thanks for the opportunity.
Looks like Anna has a question.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Dr. C. I didn't hear any ability from our Prosper Valley students to have input. Is there a way that we can elicit those, maybe not necessarily on the advisory group specifically, but you and I happen to know a student that lives in my household, my son, who's at Prosper Valley, and he has some pretty strong opinions about this. What would be the route for them to get their thoughts to you, as well as it will be affecting them also?
Yeah, thanks. Say hi to our friend for me. But yeah, I would encourage you and your son to join us in any of the 3 community forums coming up. I'm also happy to speak with the Prosper Valley principal and see if there's another way in which that we can solicit 5th and 6th grade perspectives on the topic. So happy. So again, the invitation is open to anyone and everyone. So please join us. And again, happy to reach out to the principal there.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good concerted effort to Prosper Valley to have a collection of opinions, so that it's not just whether they can attend a meeting, but rather, you know, maybe through health classes you had mentioned through the middle school, but an actual official way of collecting that input from them. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Anna. Bob, and then I had asked Owen, our student board member, to bring some thoughts as well. He's ready to do that after
You guys
Bob.
have run them by me yet, so I don't know.
Bob.
Yeah, 2 questions. Number 1, where do we think the pushback might come on this? Do we think it would be from students? Would it be from teachers? Would it be from parents? Or would it be from some of the people on this board? And the second question is, regardless of the answer to the first question, wouldn't the first step be to start immediately writing a policy regarding this?
That would be nice. And without a policy in place, I'm happy to create a practice that I'd be happy for you to review, but that we intend to implement at some point this school year. If you want to follow with the policy, again, that would be wonderful. But until that happens, we are already in position to continue with our work in this space. As for those that might be pushing back, I mean, you know, this is a topic that is that can be really hot, and you know, prepared pushback from anyone at any time. I will say that when I bring this up at the staff meetings at the middle school and high school, I wouldn't say it's a standing ovation because most people stay seated, but I would certainly say that it's a full room of applause. Most recently was a week ago, and that was just simply by we had just looking at some data. We've had a few cell phone violations, and I just remind folks that pretty soon we'll never have to have those conversations again. The NEA has also done some massive study and surveyed their population across the country. I have that research. It's also linked into the presentation. And they're also in support as the National Education Association. As for parents, I do believe that once we can navigate the facts versus the myths, it becomes quite clear that this is an intervention worth trying at the very least, if we can't convince folks all the way. But Dr. Prinstein, is there anything you've seen in your experience over these studies that may help answer this question for Mr. Green?
Yeah, thanks so much. We are seeing across the country different folks having different opinions about this, which is where our job is to really provide you with objective data that are allowing you to make decisions as a community based on what you see before, during, and after a policy that's put into place and across different parts of the community. We're actually doing this across different communities in the country. So you'll be able to have access to the results from those objective data to be able to guide what policy makes the most sense for you.
Let me speak to that.
Dr. Chin, please.
Good evening.
Mind my mess, I'm sorry. That's like my dad.
I'm glad to be here. I spoke to Carrie Brennan, who's the principal at TA today. And as you know, it's been implemented. And I asked her, well, what's the first 2.5 weeks been like? And so I want to tell you that on the first day, 2 students said they were initially resistant. But by the end of the day, the 2 students came to her and told her that they were grateful and were surprised by how chatty they were at lunchtime. And I've heard this from others, teachers and students, that it's amazing to see how quiet the lunchroom is because they're texting. But the silliness of it was, I don't know, silly to say it, but people were texting who were in arm's reach of each other to themselves. Anyway, one of them said, quote, "I can breathe." But the explanation was, I don't have to worry about checking my phone. Another quote, "I was never so happy to be bored." Quote, "I felt my feelings. When I was sad, I allowed myself to be sad." And quote, "I learned irony, that the loss of social media made me more social." And that finding is consistent with at least the literature search that I've done, is that the ability to communicate face to face. And I don't mean, by the way, on the screen, because that's not even close to being the real human. We're losing that. Losing the ability to see people and not virtually, in reality, because there's so much more communication. And as far as complaints, okay, well, I can tell you that the middle school students, for the most part, are leaving the phones at home, if they even have them. The high school students so far are compliant. Either leaving phones at home or putting them in the yonder pouches. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a pouch that is locked electronically, and you need to have a device that unlocks it. It's just like the things when you go in the store, the tags are locked. Okay. Oh, and one thing that's really important is the cost for some parents. And all the pouches, the cost was $12,000. It's all through donations. They didn't use any educational funds. So, and the only complaint by students who want access to headphones and AirPods was because they needed to listen to music on their laptops to help them focus or cancel out noise and distractions or the commotions of the classroom. And so they're working on that. But it seems, people are taking that seriously, so they're legitimate concern. Okay. There were no so far parent complaints. And I have to say that I think that's in part because of the number of meetings that were public, which obviously you're going to plan to have. And students mostly texted their parents about forgotten gym clothes or lunches. But some parents actually expressed gratitude
to the lack of phones, because this is actually teaching the children to be more organized. And not to be on call as backup. And the parents also, some parents said that they knew that in the case of a real emergency, that they are confident that they could be readily contacted by the school and vice versa. So that parent square, yes, sounds really ideal. Seems to me anyway. And sounds like it's cost effective. Yes. Anyway, I thought I'd let you have that information.
Thank you, Dr. Chairman. Your issue.
All right, I'm gonna go to Owen.
Yes, thank you.
Corinne.
I don't want to burst the bubble, so, but I guess I have a slightly different perspective on this one. I think that this is really compelling information for maybe a more rigid restriction on phones at the high school. But I do think that there's a threshold that we might cross if we ban phones entirely. So for example, mentioned worrying about checking your phone. Like I put my phone in my backpack just about an hour and a half ago, and I'm still worried about checking my phone, even though it's not on me, you know? So there's actually, I think, maybe an element of distraction that comes from not having that be available. And then, you know, obviously I'm thinking about changes in the weather, practice times, pickups that I can consider. But it's probably addressed through Parent Square. The other thing is that I really think from talking to students, this is pretty unpopular. And I think, you know, maybe in the short term, maybe in the long term, there's going to be a bit of a resentment problem if we just ban phones altogether. So, you know, whatever, I'm a layman and I'm 17 and I'm out of here in a year anyway, so don't listen to me. But I think I agree with this information and it's very compelling, but I do think there's some considerations to be had about banning it entirely. I'm a little hesitant there.
Thank you. Corinne was next and then Lara.
Hey, this is a question for the couple of researchers joining us. I'm curious if there's maybe it's too soon to have any research yet or data yet on the effect that restrictions or bans in schools have on kids beyond the school day. Because obviously, you know, end of the school day, they'll get their phones back. So are there any findings that show that, you know, having this period of the day where phones and social media is not a part of their social fabric and social world is sort of giving them some, you know, context or insight that then carries beyond the school day?
Yeah, thanks for your question. There's been a lot of research on what we know about how smart devices and social media are affecting kids, development of their brains, their ability to sustain attention, and so on. What we don't have yet, though, is the effect of these kinds of policies. So what's been happening so far is that we can see that kids are reporting a remarkable amount of what they call digital stress, the extent to which they feel that they have to be aware of whatever's happening online, addressing whatever notifications are coming. And when kids have their phones out of reach, they continue to feel digital stress because they feel like that's something that they should be checking. But when there's a policy that actually locks up the phone or keeps the phone at home or makes it so everyone knows that you can't use the phone, we see that reduction in digital stress. And the reason why that's important is the more kids report digital stress, the more they're reporting depression a year later. We're seeing about 45% of kids reporting so much digital stress that it interferes with their daily roles and routines. The other thing we know is that a lot of the benefits that could come from social media, particularly for those from minoritized populations, is mostly things that can happen with phone use after school. So it's not things that have to happen during the school day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lara, then Matt.
To Owen's point,
what if we tried like, 1-day ban? Just to see how it feels, and, you know, you were talking about having, conversations in advisory, and you can have a before and after conversation, okay, we tried it, what did it feel like for the day?
Matt?
I'll start with a few comments and then end with a question. So we're hearing tonight a lot of good evidence of why to do this, and we're hearing it coming from other schools and studies, but let's not forget that 2 years ago, our board addressed serious behavioral issues at the middle school, high school, and our administration at that time came to us and told us that I think 85 to 90% of all behavioral issues were tied to cell phone use. And that was at our school. And I believe that we have a system that logs all disciplinary actions, and you can check a box if a cell phone was involved. So please let us know if my data's off, but I thought it was like pretty much like 80% or something.
Believe it was about 600 cell phone related incidents last year. I believe. I don't have reviewed the data new at this point in this role, but that's my understanding. We've had a few already this year, and had to follow up accordingly. It's a challenge. My observations in the few days we've been in school so far, that students are not texting or calling their families. Obviously, I don't see everybody all the time, but I see enough games and YouTube going on to know that that seems to be the prevailing use. It's not about communication, not so far what I can see, you know, moving around the building, but most every student that has a device, when they move around the building at one point or another, head is down, looking at the screen as they navigate the hallway.
Right, so we have evidence it's these things are happening at our school. I think the second quick comment, I love how you're open to addressing the idea of like, some students do want earbuds and music, and I think that does work for some students. So if there is a solution, I think that makes sense. And then I think I would remind people, like, even if we take away phones, like, we're not taking away laptops. I mean, my daughter can email me anytime during the day that she's allowed to be on her laptop, and she's actually more responsive by email than text. I don't know why, but she is. And quite frankly, you can text on your laptop too, if you want to. So I wouldn't say we're taking away all forms of communications between parents and kids during the day, because technology you can do that without a smartphone. But I think the smartphone should go personally. And then the last question is, how do we as a board just procedurally line up so that your public meeting process and our policy development are hand in hand? So should we be planning on a vote as a board by October, November, December? I mean, we've got board meetings every month.
Sure.
Can I kind of wait? I really respect Aaron's process, and I'm hearing I mean, I think, and Dr. Chin and I worked together for many years. This is going to be a process for students. And I'm so old, where I was there when we banned smoking in school. So I understand how this happens. That's how old I carry.
I was there.
And so I think we have to recognize the challenges students are facing. This is this is chemistry that we're fighting against in terms of what these students have had an experience. I appreciate that Aaron, has brought in nationally recognized researchers, local experts to have this conversation. I respect what we're hearing from Owen, and I think that what Aaron's put in place is opportunities to talk to experts, national and local, has engaged families, has engaged our community, and is engaging students, and then allow them to do that process, and then reflecting our policies based on that experience. I want to really validate what our students are experiencing as we create what our response is going to be. Does that make sense? And does that kind of?
Yeah, I appreciate that support. It's my understanding that in the near future, perhaps being invited or joining a policy committee on those days, I'm happy to join and start the conversation or start to do some work together whenever you're ready. That one or the next one. Yeah. Brian.
Personally, I'm for it, because I mean, kids are on their phones way too damn much. So I'm okay with the idea of phones are separate from school or whatnot, or school time. My question is, do we as the school really have to piss everyone off by enforcing this? Or could we give the parents that, I mean, there's hundreds, probably thousands that are very concerned with this and are now being brought aware of the serious negative effects on their children, their social abilities. Can we just see how many parents say, hey, stop bringing your goddamn phone to school? Because my kids bring the phone, but if they text me, I'm like, stop it, dick. So I don't know if we really need to be the enforcers and stir this pot so much without giving parents at least a chance to work with their kids on what they think and read this information with them, go over it, and maybe work out a lot of it first. Then the the minority or whatever portions left that's still being defined, our policies adjustment should be able to address that. And it'd be a more powerful movement, in my opinion, instead of the school enforcing it and taking something away from kids. Whereas if we had the kids that are in this class taking the initiative to be part of the solution, and how much that will help other people around them join. Because then they're going to be like, dude, get off your phone. That's all.
I think Anna has her hand up.
Yeah, Elliot, if you wanted to speak directly to that comment, feel free to go ahead.
No, I wanted to say something to Matt's point, so.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the point of equity as well. Students who are either not allowed to have cell phones yet or financially can't afford a cell phone or a smartphone, I know are also exposed to a lot of bullying because they don't have this type of device. So there's also a level of equity that we need to be thinking about, as we move forward in taking in all these perspectives. On to you, Elliot.
My question is actually on Matt's point about it switching to other electronics. I mean, number one, when I told my kids were 40 years old, they said, oh, they'll just use, they'll just use something else. And the question is, what experience we have in other schools that have already done this? Are they doing that? Are they texting or emailing using their laptops? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think if those communication means are there and I'm not sure that students in mass are using their one-to-one Chromebooks to email parents on a regular basis. I know it absolutely happens. I think the concern here is kind of the open wildness that is the internet and all of the distractions and peer pressures and algorithms that are there that multiple generations that we serve have been born into and have no other idea. And now we're beginning to see research, both psychological as well as neurological, that is that there's no other research to counter available that I'm aware of, or that these professionals are aware of. As a professional educator, I'm coming to you, I have an obligation to bring this to you and seek your support. I wouldn't be doing my job otherwise.
Josh?
So, as somebody opposed to this, I'm going to kind of grill you a little bit on a few things. One, are you gonna have yours?
Actually, ordered
So I'm just asking,
yeah.
like, as a teacher in general,
Yeah.
faculty member, at any level, are you gonna have yours?
We expect the staff to also be modeling this for students. And it's part of the forums and the work that we need to do, but it's really important that the adults and the staff in the building are modeling this as well. We do have some questions around two-step authentication that we use in this district, and some staff use their personal devices to access work platforms. So we have to navigate that. There's things to navigate. Absolutely. But yeah, there's also, as you can read in one of the resources here, to have administration have access to multiple ways of communicating in the event of emergency has been and continues to be the prevailing wisdom. So that shouldn't change either.
Next one I was gonna hit you on is that piece of paper I read that did that on purpose. As the person on this board that is from the law enforcement is gonna respond to something that happens in the school. How am I gonna know where the person is? So let's just say we have an event that happened like last week in Georgia. Let's hope it never does, but think worst case. How are we gonna know where that person is? Your students, your information flow. And I went to a training on this a couple weeks ago for PD that was put on by LSU University. That influx information is what gives you a direction to where this person is, so you can make it direct. It's a stimulus, it's a sign, that's something to go on. The one in Tennessee was an actual person calling on a cell phone and said, person's in the library. That was a student on a cell phone that called. They gave them that direction. I'm totally for saying, don't have them in a class, don't have them in class. They go in your bag, they're on silent, they're turned off. But in between classes or so that something happens, they have that ability to get to that phone. It's not locked in a lockbox. I think that's a parenting thing, like, hey, don't pull your phone out. And if I find out what you do, I'll take your phone for the day. I think that comes back to like the parent raises the kid. And it should be raising them to know that and be respectful, don't have your phone out. Now, I got concerns when it comes to the safety aspect of it. And what are we teaching these kids? It's the faculty can have it, but the kids can't. That's kind of a bad look.
Everybody will be issued one. There's also ways to support those that have medical conditions that may need access to phones that have, tracking for diabetes and such.
One in my pocket.
We have those options as well, and I appreciate your perspective and happy to talk more, and you should join the forum. I hear the district's also investing in and looking at other resources for communication. We've heard two different ones this evening. And again, heartbreaks for those that lost their lives and loved ones in these things.
Yeah, it's just one of those things to pay attention to think about.
Thank you. Heather.
Thank you. I'd like to start with a high level of respect and support for the work that Aaron and Sherry have done on this. But I'd like to respectfully push back on the idea of the board creating and adopting a policy, because policy governance dictates that the board sets ends and executive limitations, not means. And a policy regarding how this is done oversteps policy governance 3.3 that delegates this to the superintendent. We should not be defining means, only ends and executive limitations. This is a really important topic. We should be looking at the procedure, but this should not be a policy in my understanding of policy governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
any questions?
I think we're, other questions?
All right, well, I think we have a lot of work to do, or actually we'll be listening to a lot of the work that you're doing and giving you our thoughts, and thank you for the open dialogue, and we look forward to the forums.
Sure.
Thank you very much. All right, we have an authorized refunding of a bond resolution. Jim is going to present to us.
Why don't we let,
we'll let the folks.
I know it's gonna be earth shattering, Jen, but I think others have other intentions for tonight. This is the best friends.
Okay. Refunding bond resolution. In your board packet is the refunding bond resolution, and what what, the reason we're bringing this forward is in March of 22, the voters approved and authorized the district to borrow $4.4 million for 3 projects. The roof project at Killington, the heat system at the high school, and the design of the new middle high school. And at that time, acting on the good advice that we had, the board borrowed the funds from Mascoma Bank. In June of 24, the legislature and the governor passed a yield bill that reinstated per student spending thresholds and only excludes bonded debt from that calculation. So the $1 million+ that we're paying every year for the next 4 years for our loan will be not excluded from the per student cost, which will throw us over the limit, and you'll have to pay a penalty, which is double the tax on those funds. We have, and I've talked with our bond counsel and the bond bank, because of the way we wrote the resolution, we have the authority to sell whatever debt the board decides to sell at any time. And so what we're proposing is that we do a refunding bond through the bond bank for the remaining 4 years of this bond. So we can't by law extend it beyond the 5 years that was authorized by the voters. And that way it'll be excluded from the calculation for the penalty funds. It'll still be part of our calculation for raising taxes, but not for the penalty costs. Something that I know Ben will like about this also is by moving our debt payment from July to November, we can reduce our TAN by about $1 million and save about $60,000 in interest costs every year, which we can also use to offset some of the costs that we have to remove from the budget. So that's a plus that we weren't thinking of when we did it, but it's a plus that as we're thinking about it now, it's important. And so what we need to do is have the board pass the resolution authorizing us to refund this loan through the bond bank.
So if someone would make a motion for that, then we can open discussion.
I make a motion to follow Jim's guidance to reapply for this loan.
Second.
Thank you. All right, any discussion, comments, questions?
I think I follow you mostly, but
Go ahead, next.
there's 60,000 a year in interest you'd save by moving from July to November. How is it every year, I would say, because once you move to November, then it's the same interest per 12 months.
The reason it's a savings is because we have to borrow a tax anticipation note every year to cover our short-term operating costs until tax revenues come in. Right now, our bond payment or our debt payment is the first week in July. So we have to borrow an extra $1 million to cover that debt payment. But if we wait till November, when we actually have tax revenues, we don't have to borrow that extra $1 million every year for the rest of the loan.
Thank you.
So it's not savings on this loan, it's just savings on the annual tax anticipation note.
Got it. Thank you.
That was a good question. I didn't get that in.
Any other questions?
I'll just make a comment. So I made this comment at the finance committee meeting, just can't tell you how like important this is for our district. If we didn't do this, the amount we'd have to cut from our budget to get under excess spending is nearly twice the amount, and so call it twice the positions would have to potentially be eliminated. So this is a total godsend. Thank you.
No problem.
If we didn't have this, I mean, it would be dire.
Yeah, it's unfortunate they did what they did, but we fortunately wrote things right so that we can do this now, so, you know.
There's no negative impact, right? This is only an opportunity to save money.
It's a positive impact because bond rates are down, so we'll probably get a little lower interest rate than what we're currently paying. But also on our tax anticipation note, we can borrow $1 million less. So it's positive.
Are we ready to vote?
We will need everybody's signature on the resolution.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the resolution has passed. Thanks, Jim, and let us know when you need our signatures.
For those of you that are here, I will make sure I get your signatures before you leave.
Thank you. All right, other folks can stop by perhaps this week to get your signature on the document. Thank you. All right, and now we have a scintillating presentation, I believe. Yes, oh, Adam, sorry.
I was just gonna ask, how late is the central office open until?
Usually 4:30. Usually 4:30.
How late do you want it to be open to?
Yeah.
Oh, I just know that with middle school soccer ending at 4:45, there's a good chance in the next 4 days I'll be picking up. I'll give you an email on a day I might anticipate being able to do it.
Except for tomorrow, because tomorrow's primary day in New Hampshire. I'll be here at 4:45.
And I'm retired now, so if anyone needs it driven to them, I'm happy to do that. Gets me out of the house. All right, now we have a scintillating presentation on the audit.
You do. Raina, can I share my screen?
I think you can do this in 5 minutes, Jim. What do you think?
I don't, but I will try.
We won't time.
I've sat through it once.
Big breaths, everybody. Little stretch, little seventh inning, you know, take me out to the ball game.
Here we go.
Okay. So I have 2 audit walkthroughs. One will take a little longer than the other. What's important is in your package, I have links to the management letters, the full audit, and then my walkthroughs with my notes. My walkthroughs skip all over the audit, not following it page by page, but I'm highlighting the things that I think are important. I think the things that you want to know. So on the first page, the most important thing for you to know is in the opinion of the independent auditor, the financial statements refer to present the facts fairly in all material respects. In other words, we did a good job and they don't. So, and that's always important because you want to have what's considered a clean audit or a clean opinion, and that's a clean opinion. And to me, that's the most important part of the whole thing. They did have a repeat finding, and this is a repeat finding. This is a second year on this. Purchase orders were not used in accordance with our procedures. And we knew this. And the reason we had this finding is because we were really struggling using purchase orders or old accounting system. On our new accounting system, we phased them in a year ago. Well, the first 6 months we were on it, and now nothing gets paid unless a purchase order is used. So we knew we would still not be in compliance in 2023. In 2024, this finding will go away because we are now in full compliance. But we purposely did not address this because we knew we were going to get the new software that would address it. Okay, moving right along. 2 things that I think are important is there's always a restatement. And what this is as they do a subsequent year, they might find something that got missed in the prior year's audit and they do a restatement. And so in this particular restatement, there was a $29,000 error that was discovered in the 22 audit that they had to restate. Nothing significant, but it's important that you know that it happened. And the other thing that's always important is subsequent events. Every year we have to say something that we're aware of that took place after the end of the year, if there was something that is subsequent in nature. For us, it was that the voters of the district had approved the loans that we took out last July, a year ago. And those are the things that were noted here in the subsequent amendment. So not surprised to you, shouldn't be a surprise to the voters, but somebody who's not from our community, this is important for them to know, because if they're looking at our financials, they're gonna wanna know, next year what we did and how we took care of these things. Okay. One of the things that, is always important to look at is your budget versus actual. And here, our budget for revenues was 21,629,000, and we actually received revenues of 20,958,000. Significant chunk of that was in tuition, because our tuition estimates were too high and our number of students that were tuitioning in at the high school had dropped. The other one is not a material impact, but as we move food service out of the general fund into its own fund, we budgeted in the general fund, and you'll see later it came in its own fund. And so that's not really a reduction in revenues, it's just a shifting to a different fund.
How does that help us?
It helps us tracking it independent of the general fund. It doesn't help us in any other way. It's really makes accounting for it easier. Okay, when we came to spending, our final budget and our actual budget, we underspent our budget by $334,000, or about 1.5%. When you think about the fact that we develop our budget and you adopt it in December, 6 months before the fiscal year starts, that's pretty good budget. That we came in with within 1.5% of the budget. And that's just, that's good, especially that we're under. Okay. One thing that's not so good is our unassigned fund balance. And when you look at the fund balance, there's non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. Unassigned is really cash that's available. We were at the end of fiscal year 23, $1.4 million in the hole on unassigned fund balance at the district. Now, hold your comments on that until I get to the SU, and it's not as bad as it looks. But at the district, we were $1.4 million in the hole. And so we have to develop, and I've developed, and we've already recovered a part of that, a strategy to recover that over the next few years. Okay. Some of the things to keep in mind is, and here is your non-spendable, your restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. And we had 247,000 in non-spendable, $1.3 million in restricted. The restricted was the money for the JCI project. $1.2 million in assigned, and the 1.7 million in available cash as not available. When you look at our balance sheet, some of the important things to note is that our non-current assets, our capital assets, our buildings increase in value by $2 million because of the improvements we made. So that was the heating systems we put in the buildings, the JCI projects, those types of things. Our deferred outflows increased a little bit, and our non-current liabilities increased some also, and these are all part of those construction projects. And so you see in our net position, our net investment in capital increased by $2.5 million, our restricted increased by 1.2, and our unrestricted decreased significantly. All that said, our change in net position, or profit and loss from our operations, was a $539 profit, $539,000 profit. So all this that has some bad stuff, operationally, we did good to the tune of $539,000. So it's not doom and gloom, but there's some things we have to do to be done. Okay, one of the things I'm showing you here, and this is part of the reason we separated the food service, is we've known right along for years, the food service has operated in the negative, somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 a year. In 2023, it was $199,000 in the negative. It now shows it because it's a standalone entity. We budget $200,000 a year to offset that. And so it was right on target. So it's not unexpected, but you'll see in the next audit where July 1st, I transferred $199,540 from the general fund to the food service as our transfer to cover the shortfall in food service. And so we were right on target there, and it was exactly as we expected it to be.
If the state pays for all the food for the student, can't we just charge the state?
No, because they only pay us so much a kid for so many meals. And the problem is, when you have a school with 50 kids or 75 kids or 110 kids, you don't have enough business to cover the overhead of running the kitchen.
It just seems like a little smoke. I mean, it's not on you. It just seems smoke and mirrors to be told that the state's covering meals, but then we're paying for it in our budget out of our taxes to cover $250,000. Like,
It's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Capital assets. In the notes of the financial statement, they go cover a lot of things that are covered elsewhere, and they give you some of the details. So these are our capital assets. The balances at the beginning of the year, the additions, you can see building and land improvements, we added 2.6 million and we sold $68,000. Vehicles, we added 92,000, we sold one for 13,000. And then some accumulated depreciation. And so you can see that we did go up a couple $1 million here. And you'll see this again next year in the 24 budget, because we did all of the work at the high school and at Killington, and so those will show up here. Long-term debt. These are the things that we owe money on. So we owe, at the beginning of the year, we owe $333,000. The end of the year, we owe $266,000 on the 2014 work that was done at the high school. We have 4 more years of paying that. And then the $3.1 million at the beginning of the year, that's the JCI project. That's a 15-year debt. And we paid $174,000 against that. And so you can see the detail and the explanation there. That's important. Here is the debt schedule for the long-term debt that we're showing on the prior page. Some other things that are considered long-term obligations are accrued compensated absences and net pension liabilities. So an accrued compensated absence is the retirement payouts that some of the teachers had that when we merged, that we'll have to pay them when they leave. But this is also anybody who has vacation time or something else that rolls into the new year, that's included in here also. Okay, so those types of leaves are included here. And for the retirement payout, because nobody left that was entitled to the payout amount goes up unless they use their sick time, because they accrued more sick time and their wages went up. So that's ever increasing until they leave. The net pension liability is a whole nother story, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes. So these are your deficit fund balances. You've got your general fund, your food service, capital reserves, Prosper Valley Local Grant, the Veggie Bean Go, and the after-school program. After-school program is something that we inherited when we merged, and that's something that I'm going to clean up in the next year or so. But it's still there right now. So that's goes back to 2016 or 2018, and it's not been addressed yet. Okay. We participate in the Vermont Teachers Retirement System. And except for teachers that are in grants, we pay nothing towards that retirement. The state pays it directly to the retirement system. But because the retirement system is billions of dollars in the hole, every year they have to distribute out to all of our financials the portion of that deficit that belongs to us. So of the deficit as of June 30th of 2023, $7,666,408 is attributed to us. Now, the good news is if we closed up school at the end of the year, we walk away from that. We're not on the hook for it. Whoever these teachers go to work for would eventually be on the hook for that as they work on their plan to make the retirement system whole. But this is the distribution of the debt that is allocated to us. And it's just an accounting practice. It doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. For the VEMRs, which is Vermont Municipal Employees Retirement, which is what the custodians, the support staff, the kitchen people, people like me who are not in the teachers program, we do pay towards that. And we pay, excuse me, about 6% of the wages towards that. Again, that program is also in a deficit position, but not as bad as the teachers. And our allocation of that is $2.2 million. Okay, again, you'll never have to pay it, but that's our allocation. And that is the school district's financial report. Now, what I'd like to do quickly, because I asked you not to ask questions on the other one for a second, is show you a few slides from the SU. So this is the SU audit. And I don't want to show you all 30 screens because they're all very similar to what you just saw. What I want to take you to is this screen here, where the SU's revenues exceeded the budget by $525,000. So we had a very positive revenue cash flow stream there. Our expenditures were almost right on the money. But our balance sheet shows an unassigned fund balance of $2 million. So the deficit we have at the district right now is being offset by the $2 million at the SU. And so part of our plan to fix the deficit at the district is to reduce some of the payments that the district makes to the SU over the next 2 years and draw down the SU's surplus and allow the district to recover some of it. So that's the important thing I wanted to show you, that as a complete entity, we're $500,000 to the good, but as separate entities, one was strong and the other one wasn't. And so part of our financial plan has to be to get that balance back where it needs to be. Okay, there's really nothing else at the SU that I wanted to show you, but if you really want to go through all the slides, they're in your package, so please, go for it. Any questions?
Jim, great job. I had a chance to ask all of my questions, and the finance committee did as well at our last finance meeting, so appreciate you making this mandatory report this evening.
Yes, and I agree. It's been a long time since we've had a comprehensive review of our audit at the board level, and I think this is a really important responsibility because one of the biggest tasks the board has is around the fiscal responsibility and knowing what's in the audit and the books. It's got us in trouble a couple times, and I think this has been really helpful.
And Ron always says he's happy to come if you'd like to have him present.
We would not.
Thank you very much, Jim, for all your hard work.
All right.
Much appreciated. All right, I think Sherry, you're going to speak to the grant.
So I'm really excited to know, and I thought Raph was going to talk about this project, and Raph thought I was going to talk about this project, but we're looking at one of the parts of the strategic plan that really came present after discussions with the community was talking about having multiple pathways for students. How do we ensure that all students have multiple pathways upon graduation? And this is something that was kind of in the last strategic plan. We tried to do different things, really didn't feel like we hit that out of the park. So Raph and I talked about offering this course called Future You, which is really looking at sophomores in high school and how do we prepare them to make some of the most important decisions they're going to make. College is so expensive. We're asking, really young people to make lifelong decisions and choices about where they want to go, how they want to do that in the process. So Raph and I pitched this idea for a class called Future You. We spoke with the Mountain View's Innovation Fund group, to the representatives, and they are really excited about this work. We'll give you more information in detail, but Raph and I connected with a professor at Stanford University. He will be, we got him for a song to work with us for 3 sessions this fall to help us think about how do we help students make these plans. And the Mountain View's Innovation Fund will fund $5,000 up to $8,000. Typically, Stanford University is $45,000 a day. And so we are getting this individual for 3 days for $8,000. And in fact, we met with him today, and the first 2 of those sessions are supposed to be remote. And he is so excited about the collection of people who are beyond this that he's like, I could fly up from San Francisco to be part of this group, so maybe I'll come. So we're really excited. Typically, this course is only offered at like Stanford and Dartmouth, so college level, where kids have already made these life-altering decisions. Some high schools are looking at it. Typically, those are like Phillips Andover private schools. So we really feel like having students have the opportunity to really think about what are their passions, how do they see themselves making those decisions. Not that they're going to pick a major, but they're going to assign mentors, a lot of different other activities to help them make that decision. And so Mountain View's Innovation Fund has offered a grant of $5,000, and I'm asking the board to accept that gift so we can move forward in this work.
Is there a motion to accept the grant?
I'll make a
Second.
motion to accept the grant. Oh, I can second if need be.
I'll make a motion, it really don't matter, this makes sense.
Ryan made the motion, I'm seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
But is he really coming here to see the people or the trees?
I mean, Raph and I got after a 30-minute call at 3:30, and he just, that a public high school in central Vermont wants to do this work. He is so excited, and I think that, again, why should you have to go to Phillips Andover to have this experience? Our students should have that opportunity, so he's really excited. He said great stuff's happening in Vermont, and I would agree.
Here, here.
Great. All right, now we are going to the committee updates and finance committee. Oh, Adam, sorry, I didn't see you.
I was just gonna, I was just gonna applaud our district's ability to kind of reach beyond the small state of Vermont for expertise is pretty commendable, right? So, who Sherry just referenced, but then good on you, Aaron, of getting the chief science officer from the APA to be a consultant to us about the use of smartphones. That's pretty impressive.
And Raph leveraging MIT contacts.
Yeah.
Let's figure out AI.
All right, great work for all. Thank you. Ben, finance committee.
Yeah, finance met in August. We went over the audit. We went over a few other, like the conversion of the outstanding debt to a bond, and also wanted to thank Sherry, Jim, others who were involved in a really good discussion about getting kids to after school care in Reading to the Albert Bridge School, and the flexibility that we were able to employ to be able to support that important program. But yep, we'll meet again next week, and I think the important work of the committee is around, how we're going to bring a budget forward, right, to the board to, for next year, recognizing these kind of surprise limitations with the excess spend threshold that we talked about, a bit ago. And that's going to be a process. Unfortunately, that work needs to be done in executive session because it impacts employment contracts. And I know that's frustrating for a lot of members in the public who have, the interest that they're, seeking to protect or to see heard. But we would encourage people to certainly make their voices known, and we'll share as much information as we can before we get into budget season.
Thank you. Policy committee update.
So we have no updates this evening. The policy committee has not had a quorum meeting for several months, and that basically, so we haven't been able to move things ahead. We are hoping next week that we will be able to have a quorum meeting. We do have several policies that are sort of on deck and are in our draft form that we could work on. So we're hoping.
Thank you. Buildings and grounds.
All right, we did meet, Joe's here. I'm gonna highlight some of the work Joe and his team did over the summer. So there was some painting of all the trim at Killington Elementary School that was finished. The alarm system, which works perfectly fine today, but the fire inspector would want the heat detectors updated. Those have not arrived, so we're waiting for those parts before we can repair that system. Delayed some work on some insulation, but we're planning to do it in April above the wall between the gym and the school at Killington. At Woodstock, there were some tree house repairs made where there was some rot. 3 classrooms have new carpet. We explored replacing the lift between the 2nd and 3rd floor, but the fire marshal didn't like our proposal, so we're looking at the possibility of adding an elevator in the back stairwell. At Reading Elementary, the parking lot and the entrance with like the drop off for the buses and parents was completely repaved and reconfigured. And I've heard from the public that that was very well received and a job very well done. And at Reading, we had a big HVAC project that was under grants. So we upgraded all of the air handling systems with new heat pumps that include air conditioning. So we already have a super efficient heating system there, but now we're gonna be able to supplement that with some heat pumps. So I think Reading is gonna sort of set the bar now on an energy efficient building for us. At Prosper Valley, the back parking lot was repaired and the H2 bottle fillers are being repaired as we speak. They're in. And here at this building, the Supervisory Union building, the building was painted and we're exploring a new door access system that could be used district-wide, but that didn't quite go in. And then to finish off with the high school, middle school, the biggest news by far is that we did sign off on what's called substantial completion under the contract with JCI, and they are installing all the heating control systems. And so, fingers crossed, when we turn the heat all back on, we're gonna have temperature control dialed in all of our classrooms.
Yes. The answer is yes.
And the boiler repairs were done, you know, the entire project to convert to hydronic heating away from those old systems we had, that's all completed. I think the boiler might need one more item.
Yeah, there'll be a slight repair that's gonna take place in October.
Okay, so the last thing on my list, and it's probably the most important that we discussed tonight, is the status of the gymnasium at the high school. So our committee dove into a recent engineering report on the loading capacity of that roof. So we engaged Dubois and King, they're an engineering firm, and they came on site and they assessed the joist, and they observed all the joists to be in perfectly good working condition. They saw nothing wrong with the joists that are there. But when they ran their calculations on what the snow loading, what the roof loading would be with those joists, they drew a conclusion, which is that they were designed for 30 pounds per square foot, and that met the code in 1956 when this building was constructed. However, in 2015, the current code would require that roof handle 46 pounds per square feet, so 16 pounds per square feet. So we're not at today's code for roof loading on the gymnasium. The other areas of concern that they noticed was that there's some cracking in the masonry. So you know that's a cinder block wall, anyone who's familiar with the gym. And in between the masonry is concrete mortar. And in some spots, it's cracked. Sometimes it's a vertical crack, other places it's a step crack where it like follows the actual cinder block. And they're not, in their report, they didn't draw any conclusions as to why those cracks are there. Is it loading or is it something else? And they actually think it's most likely what they refer to as shrinkage, like the mortar has just sort of dried out and now you're starting to see some cracks. So what they recommended is that anywhere we see cracks in those walls, we repoint the mortar. And then we paint it, and then we monitor it every 6 months. So watch for any additional changes to those repointed cracks. If nothing happens, then that would probably mean that what caused all the cracking was shrinkage and not them, you know, failing under stress. So we're gonna do that. I don't know if it's done yet, but.
Oh, we have that on a schedule now that we're open and things are getting back to normal.
So we'll repoint the cracks that you can see in the walls and paint them and then monitor them every 6 months. They also advise us to, the joists, the big steel beams run east to west, if you're familiar with the gym. But then north to south, they have something called angle X brackets that support those joists. And when they come up on the north-south wall, they make contact with the wall still as an X, and they think that caused some like pressure that may have caused one of the cracks. So they're recommending we replace those when they rejoin the wall with two straight steel rods instead of an X. So we've asked as a buildings and ground committee that we get a quote to see what that would cost.
Yeah, I should have a proposal for reinforcing the joists for that ceiling, which will bring us up to code and alleviate any of the issues that they had noted. I should have that by the end of October.
And then the last thing I'll point out is that they also recommended that we implement snow management where if over 16 inches is on the roof, you get up and you remove the snow. But that is completely not feasible because that entire gym is surrounded by lower level buildings, and so we would have no place to put it. And they advised against trying to melt it and drain it. So, you know, I bring this to the full board's attention because, you know, the fear is that would that roof collapse under heavy load? I mean, it's been there for 70 years. It has not, but there was like, I think 5 years ago, there was a lot of snow and rain and someone thought they heard groaning or noise in the beams. But so again, you draw your own conclusions. It doesn't meet today's code. The cracking, they can't say for sure is the stress loading. We're gonna fix those cracks and monitor them. And we're gonna get a price to potentially strengthen the beams to bring it up to code. But at this time, our committee was not recommending to close the gym. That's the full buildings and grounds. That was our whole meeting in 5 minutes.
Well, that's a good outcome, actually. Closing the gym. All right, negotiations, hiring and retention committee update. This fall, negotiations will need to start with the support staff. And we're waiting for a date for the arbitration on the one matter that could not be resolved. Any other working groups? Oh, all right, then the next thing we need to do is approve the minutes from August 5th, 2024. Assuming you've had a chance to look at it. Did anyone find anything to correct? All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes? It's a very important motion.
My motion.
Thank you, Josh. Is there a
I'll
second? Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, it's approved. And now we have an opportunity for public comment. What I'd like to say is that I'd like to keep it to 2 minutes per person due to the hour that we're at. If somebody has already said what you were going to say, it's perfectly okay to say. I was going to say that, but I'm not going to. We open it up now for public comment. Yes.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Pressway, parent in the district, and I had 3 quick comments. One, to speak to the Future You idea, which I just learned about. There's also Advance Vermont, which is a great organization that helps with career aspiration choices. So something that's sort of put to the next advancevermont.org thing. I wanted to just speak briefly in support of the idea that Aaron is proposing around this cell phone discussion, especially including youth voice. I'm really grateful that you're including youth voice in that. I support the ban, and I also think that there's a lot of discussion to be had to make sure that that is the right choice and that everyone feels that their voices are heard in that discussion. And finally, to speak to what Elizabeth Reed just mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I went to this school. I attended all of the Woodstock schools in the years. And music was the thing that was the most important to me, and helped me learn to focus and helped me learn to work with people and to listen. And that's not what I ended up doing. I mean, I did some music, but it's helped me in every aspect of my life. And so I just want to like put in a little word that the arts, Spanish, you know, other languages, STEM is what my kid is like. He's like, I won't go to vacation with you if I'm going to miss STEM, right? Like that's what he's living for. So like, how can we make sure that those things are really crucial and critical parts of what we want for our community? So.
That's all I'm saying. Thank you. Anybody else? I can't see very well. Anybody online? All right, this is your last chance. Yes.
I also want to speak and just say that, that we owe it to our kids to provide these guardrails because, the parents, the teachers, the kids policing themselves is not working. So I'm so thrilled to hear that we're engaging in these conversations with the phone free. That's amazing. And, that we're joining a statewide and worldwide movement to really give our kids the best, kids, school is for socializing and critical thinking. And we have to give our kids this. It's a gift.
Your name in town is?
Sarit Werner, Woodstock, Vermont. And with respect to AI and bringing that into the schools, I'm just wondering, does that apply also to the elementary school and middle school, or is it just a high school thing?
So Brad can speak to that. Permissions can only be given to students in grade at 13 and older.
Eighth grade.
Eighth grade.
Thank you.
Good question.
But we should give it to the teachers everywhere.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much. As a board, we do not have an executive session tonight. We do have an opportunity for reflection. So I'm interested in your reflection, and I do have a couple of comments to make about a meeting I attended today. Board members?
Carrie.
Yes.
I don't really have comment for the public. I don't want to hold us up anymore, but there's like a shitstorm about the varsity soccer woman that I'd like to touch base on that. I think
We'll talk afterwards.
very rare.
Wait, why don't we talk afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, I want to. Yeah.
Any other comments for reflection? What we did well, what we can do better? Well, I did want to let you know that I attended a commission meeting on public education today. It was 3 hours. They did a lot of talking and acknowledging that they didn't have a very diverse representation of people on their committee. And they may reach out to find other folks who actually are teaching and or administrating in the various districts. And I did make a public comment around two things. I said, first of all, we're in the second worst rated school in the state and at 90% depleted. We can't renovate it. And now with the yield bill putting in limits and penalties, we are really at our wits' end as to what to do. And we are hoping that you have some thoughts on that and fixing that as soon as you can. And then I also went on and said, and I also would like to know does the Ed Fund actually fund? Because I recently learned and validated by our business manager that the TIF districts in our state are being financed out of the Ed Fund. And of course they do what we do. They said, thank you. Then Ken Fredette, who I know Ben's talked to, has a group called Friends of Public Schools, I think. And he also got up and read a much more eloquent letter, but he did reference the TIF district, and he actually acknowledged me and said thank you to me for mentioning that, because he said the deficit that the state had to bail out, which was $60 million to offset, I forget what now, I did know once. He said that would have been probably the TIF district down the road in Killington would have probably more than paid for that. So it was interesting. There were other speakers as well who spoke about some of the things that we have also had problems with regarding penalty phase, when it was implemented, how it was implemented, and so forth and so on. So I sent out to you today the link to those meetings, should any of you feel like using your time that way. I won't say it was boring, but you can have your camera off so you can multitask in the background. Okay, anyone else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Josh has motioned it. Is there a second?
Throw mine.
Thank you. All right. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, meetings next week.
Thank you.